We are live. How's it going, home theater fans? I'd like to introduce someone to you. Yes, it's right here to my left. We got
right here.
Parker. Yeah, Sonnie, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. First time on YouTube, I think. Maybe.
Oh, that's fantastic. First of many, I hope.
Yeah.
Everybody, Sonnie is co-founder of AV Nirvana, co-partner of mine. We've been in this together for, oh boy, is this year 7?
2017.
Yeah. So we're going on 7 years now, and I'm really excited to have you interested to jump into these AV Nirvana live sessions. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I think so. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
What's that?
I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, we have some fun shows that we're digging up. I think we're going to have the guys from M-Wave on with us soon, right? In a couple
Michael and Ryan, they're planning on coming on. We're going to interview them and talk to them about the event that's coming up in June. So looking forward to that too. I'm planning on being there actually. So
awesome. Yeah, it's going to be good to have you present. I will not, unfortunately, be able to make it this year, but we'll have some AV Nirvana presence there, so we'll get a good look from that side of things. And yeah, so Forum is doing really well. I don't know if you know this, but we're about to eclipse 62,000 registered members.
Yep, doing pretty good.
So doing well on that front. Yes, and today, so we have an interesting topic today. We've got THX and Pixelgen with us, and I think the timing's pretty good because we just had someone on the forum open up a thread with a lot of HDMI questions, and it really elucidated to me or illuminated how confusing the world of HDMI is. You know, we have HDMI 2.1, 2.0, 1.4, and then all of these technologies that are built into all the products that we use in the world of home theater and just people's media systems and things that, you know, it's hard to understand where they fit into the whole HDMI ecosystem.
Yeah, I think people really don't understand what all goes into an HDMI cable. It's not like an RCA cable.
No.
It's completely different, and there's a lot involved in it. And it's like I was telling you before, the only one cable that ever give me much of a problem has been HDMI cables, especially the long run cables. You know, we went through a time there where it was hard to find anything that would work 35, 40 feet for a projector. But even the short ones, you know, I used to buy the cheap ones on Amazon, and you know, I'd have problems with them.
Yeah.
So now I do step up and spend a little more money on HDMI cables to make sure I get good quality cables. And that's why I was excited to see these from THX and Pixelgen. Build quality just looks astoundingly good.
Yeah.
And I think they're worth it because you know you got reliability, you got something good that's not going to fault on you. And
yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to get into all of these factors, build quality. We're going to talk about the technologies behind them with two of the experts in the equation here. Why don't we go ahead and bring them on? Here we have Jack MacDougall. Jack is founder and CEO of Pixelgen. And we have Steve Martz from THX. How's it going, Steve?
Yeah, it's going great. It's great to be here with on AV Nirvana with you, Todd and Sonnie. I really appreciate it.
Great to see you guys.
Glad to have you guys. Yeah.
Well, let's give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves. Steve, we'll start with you. If you want to just give a quick little background on yourself, how you kind of fit into the equation here.
Well, sure. I'm Steve Martz. As you see, I'm the Vice President of Global Technology Partnerships. I've been with THX for 26 years, quite a bit of time doing a lot of different audio things here. My teams oversee all the test and certification and the hardware product development here at THX.
Okay. 26 years?
Yeah. Seen a thing or two.
You've definitely seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
That's neat. And Jack.
Yeah. So founder CEO of Pixelgen. We've been around since 2015, but I've somehow put my entire livelihood professionally into HDMI. So Sonnie, all the things that you've seen, I've decided to go headfirst into that. I do love spreading the good word on what we're doing, and I really truly believe we've gotten to a point with this latest offering. It's I would say close to 20 years of hard work of connectivity solutions up and down, and we have something pretty special here, simple, and Pixelgen really does work with uncompressed connectivity solutions first and foremost, but we also work with some 4K Derby related products that will be coming this year.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to dig into this. You guys, I have all of these cables here. They're going to be released on an HDMI test bench episode, hopefully in the next week or so. All the testing is done, and they are really fantastic. You guys have a lot to be proud of. So into this, Steve, I'm going to toss this to you first, because THX isn't really known for manufacturing its own products or selling products with its own label on it. You guys had the THX Onyx DAC, headphone DAC, which came out, I want to say, about 3 years ago. Does that sound about right?
A little more than that, but yeah.
A little more than that?
Before COVID, yeah.
And now we have cables. This is kind of the second consumer-facing product that you guys have. What's going on in that side of the business there?
Well, we kind of look back to, how and why THX was formed. I look at, George Lucas founding THX to solve a problem in the industry. He noticed that he's making all these great movies. He's making, the first 2 Star Wars movies, Indiana Jones, and he goes to the local cinema, and all that movie magic is not being seen and heard. The pictures are dim, it sounds muffled, the acoustics are poor. So he tasked Thomas and Holman, I think we know that name in this industry, to create a set of specifications and standards to help solve this problem. And out of that effort, THX was formed. So basically, you think of it as hey, there's a problem in the marketplace, and see what we can do to help solve that problem for people, and make it easier, make choices easier, to make, in this case, make movie going easier, make it as the director intended. Likewise with the, you mentioned the THX Onyx. We had a technology that we created, and it was really, really good. It was a very efficient DAC amp. It was super low distortion, and we made basically a prototype that we were like, oh, we want to show off how this thing can do, because it was really, I said, efficient. So you think at the time, you're looking at a lot of mobile devices that are heavily reliant on batteries. How can we maximize the performance of this and the low in these type of devices? So we created a prototype device, and we're like, this is a really great thing. We don't make products. What do you think about putting this out in the marketplace and showing people what THX can do as an individual product? And I think you're a little bit familiar with it. It was great. It reviewed well. It performed better than certainly anything that's price point, and certainly things that you can spend a lot more money and still not get the same performance. So we had something in the marketplace that we were looking at, and at the same time, we see this sort of confusion in the marketplace for HDMI cables as well. I'm personally one of those people. Like, what cable do I buy? From where do I buy? Am I spending the right amount of money? Or is this, what is it? How can I make sure that I'm making the right thing? And we're like, well, that's something we can do. We certainly can do that. And we certified cables in the past, and we have specifications for the performance and 4K cables. And we're looking, well, why don't we do our own? We know what the problems are. We know what you want to do. We know what the consumers are kind of looking for. We're talking to them. So why don't we look at sort of doing that on ourselves? And when we're doing certification of cables, there was a partner of ours, Pixelgen, that had certified cables, and working with Jack on just that process, it was clear this guy knows a little bit about cables, if you know what I mean. And it was like, well, that's who we got to go talk to. Let's go talk to Jack and see if we can take this idea and bring this into the marketplace. So we went to Pixelgen. He has all the brain trust and experience. Plus, one other thing they have is technology too, the Pixel Glass technology for the long reach cables. As Sonnie had mentioned, the long reach problem is one of the most aggravating things of, is it going to work? And you think about the size of the cable, the usage of the cable, some of these giant, garden hoses that you're trying to send down some conduit, a lot of things that make it really, really difficult in achieving, a great signal over long distances. And then we had other things we're looking at too that we just really wanted to bring to the market. We thought that was a great way to do it. We're partnering with Pixelgen on co-designing this product.
Awesome.
Is HDMI cables where it ends? Or
Where it
the other
ends.
products?
There are a lot of problems in the marketplace. So, we'll see, right now, right? This is where we are right now.
Yeah. And that, Steve, and what it comes down to for Pixelgen is that actually personally, I used to work in the video broadcast industry. So I was a IC engineer. So I worked in semiconductors, and I got a firsthand view of the spec when it actually just came out, 1.0, and, nothing had been out there like this before. There was DVI, and then it just kind of jumped ahead into that HDMI world just overnight. And to have that one cable with everything, came a lot of challenges, right? And I really saw that the residential market specifically could have some, there's maybe just a little bit of missing information there of, video broadcast is a technology based on length. You got your ESPN truck outside a big football stadium, and they have to run hundreds of meters over coax. So I learned things like SDI and things like that. And it actually started our very first product called Pixel Drive, which we actually had certified. Little plug there, old one there.
Oh yeah.
And that was that little restore circuit that would take, an old 1080p cable and upgrade it to 4K. So it was in that we kind of, we're under the radar now, and people know what we're talking about, and that we're getting the message out. We were meeting with a lot of brands. Two of the bigger ones was Kaleidoscape and JVC. We went right to their front door, didn't make $1 yet, and said, "What are your problems? Is there something we could do to help you out, or at least find a way to help you out?" And it turned out that Pixel Drive unit was something that was just in its prototype stage. They liked the idea, and we built a product. It cut their customer service issues overnight, and it was something that we took a lot of pride in, and that's where we kind of got that fanfare. But with THX now, like I've said at the beginning, this is just a culmination of a lot of hard work, maybe a lot of downfalls within the how products have been pushed into the market. When the big flashy 4K comes, everybody wants it, and 8K, and everybody needs HDR. These are things that you have to be really careful with, and make sure that you're prepared to not just launch something into the market. We at Pixelgen, we've always been very proud of putting something out when we know that we have just maximized the A to B transmission of this signal. And we don't launch anything if we see a known failure. It's something we work on. We go back to the drawing board, put a bunch of coffee on, and figure it out. So we're very privileged to be working with THX, and to have that amazing recognition with that incredible brand, but put together with some education and some just working together every day has been fun. And so yeah, excited to talk about the nuts and bolts, and I can talk about anything you want from top to bottom.
Fantastic.
You sure can.
Before we dive into the cables themselves, Steve, one of the first questions that we had from one of our forum members when the news was released that you guys were actually launching these cables officially was, are they THX certified? And I think the answer technically is no, correct?
The answer technically is no. I mean, we don't certify our own products, all two of them, because they meet all of our requirements. So the specification we had for 4K cables and for 8K cables, it meets all those requirements. So this is our own product. We wouldn't put two stamps on it. Just look for the THX logo.
Technically, they would be certified then, so to speak.
Technically,
they have that performance capability, and more. That's the whole point, right? So it's not just a certified cable performance. It's that plus all the other things we did to it, all the real use case things that are added on top of it, the ID, the fit and fit and the finishes and everything about the cable is stuff that's over and above that makes it what is a THX cable, THX interconnect cable, and not just a specification from us.
Okay, but they were tested by HDMI, their licensing lab, correct? For ultra certification.
Yes. They're HDMI certified. Absolutely, we believe that's really important. It's an anchor for our performance specification for these cables. They're very HDMI is really important for the industry. It really brings transparency. You know what you're getting. It's you look for the QR code. On all our packaging, you can go. There's the QR code and the hologram. You can go scan that, and you can go to their website and be assured that this is an HDMI certified cable. And we really believe that as a great starting point for performance for everybody, because there's so many, mislabelings out there in cables.
That brings me to a question on the certification part. I think it's UHS certification.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a requirement for all HDMI cable manufacturers?
Absolutely. At this time right now, as a quick background, anything with the numerical number, so if it's a 1.0 or 1.4, 2.0, 2.1, that's basis of mechanical infrastructure that's changing, being updated, real massive leaps. So you're talking about if you're going to go to bandwidths from 9 gigabit per second all the way up to 48 gigabit per second that you're working on with HDMI 2.1, they have to rebuild and target all these different types of connectors. Plugs and connectors become critical. The way that you twist the differential pairs within the cable. So everything within that specification has to be tested, and you can't cheat it. There are things that will break it. Believe it or not, things like I'm not sure if you're familiar with the EARC, the enhanced ARC channel. It's a a good way to get your upstream audio codecs from your display. Yeah, exactly. It's become this fantastic technology. But for a while there, it was kind of hit or miss. Wasn't super intuitive to build, but now everybody's using it. Unfortunately, specifically with long reach cables, you definitely need that HDMI stamp. But what THX does and what we got involved with was that you need to make sure that it actually works in reality. Because the long reach, some people or manufacturers could actually strip that piece of functionality to go a little bit further or make claims that they can go a little bit further. We want to make sure that we have all encompassing, a 1 meter cable is no different than 15 meter optical. It should have every, the essence of a 1 meter is a 15 meter. The ins and outs look exactly the same. So if you don't have that little hologram where they've actually made it a QR. They used to have a HDMI app that you'd have to go in and kind of flash. But now they made it very accessible to anyone at a brick and mortar store or receiving it on Amazon or wherever, to just QR code, get that information, know that it was tested and to the maximum bandwidth. And without that, I call them plug and pray products. You just really don't know. And certainly over 1,000 cables, as in the CI industry, you want to make sure that every single one is going to perform when you're, in a rough end environment, and you just want to, connect everything and hope for the best at the end. We're certainly not in that sub $10 realm, but we think that we've hit that confidence, that feeling that you are getting something that's worth its value, but definitely not punching above that price weight of, some of the other players out there that are in the super premium market, which I have a lot of thoughts about, obviously.
Sure. Well, let's jump right in and talk about the two categories of cables that you guys are putting out there right now. So I think we'll start with the one on the left there.
Yeah. So you should look at this whole thing as an umbrella of cables to get you from that 0.5 meter really low, 0.5 meter all the way up to 15 meter. And copper has its last legs at 5 meters. You could go 7 and 9. I've seen compliant certification of 9 meters, but you're looking at quite literally a 1-inch diameter cable. And that's something that could break ports, big basketball sized radius to it. And it's something that is not obviously what THX or Pixelgen are about at all. But the short range would go from 0.5 meters to 2 meters using a very, very ultra thin that I'm sure you've seen. And that's by design. And that's because of some of these glitches we've seen out there with uber short HDMI cables that we fixed with being a lower gauge. And then it gets a little thicker when you get to 3 meters. It goes to a 30 gauge, and then the thickest goes to the 26 gauge, which is the one that it's what we felt was the proper balance before, obviously not going any further, but it was thin enough that we felt happy with it. And then you get into that crossover point with optical, and then that's where you're really getting into the optical realm of the hybrid environment. You're talking about optical transmission for the high speed FRL, and then the low speed is all taken care of on a back plane of copper. And it's a very, very highly compatible cable length from 7.6, 10, and 15 that we have tested. You wouldn't believe the places we brought this. The Best Buys, we cart these through and plug in with every solution we can and get these weird looks. But we do what we can. If we don't have it, we will roll a PS5 into a store. It's that simple. We have to be a little crazy in this world. And if you can get that assurance, that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
Right
I mean, I think we're going over the lengths. I mean, we offer 9 different choices here. So in the copper size, you have a 0.5 meter, 1 meter, 1.5, and 2 meter. There you go. Thank you. And then you have 3 and 5 in the copper, and then you run over to the hybrid optical at 7.6, 10, and 15. And the 0.5 to 2 meter. I mean, you probably won't be able to see this, but it's only 5.2 millimeters thick. It's teeny weeny, and it has an excellent bend radius, of like about an inch right there. But the thing is, the hybrid optical, the 7.6 up to 15, are just another millimeter, about another millimeter thicker than this. They're still very, very thin.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have, the issues of the bend radius plugging in the back of your TV for your really long reach cables. It's still the same, and that's one of the things we thought was really, really important. I mean, I think about, thanks, Sarah. Yeah. That's what. Let's talk about that in a second.
Sure.
I think about people who buy, their brand new TV, their $3,000 TV, and they're running their 5 meter garden hose, and they plug it in, and it cracks the connector on the TV, and they don't know why it's not working. They may never ever figure it out, and they keep plugging in new cables, and they'll never know. In reality, they have to fix their TV, and how are they going to do that? In essence, they may end up buying a new one or sending that one back and getting something, and this is just going to be a complete mystery. And we just didn't want that to happen to consumers, where they're having to be able to fit this into a panel on the back of their display or somewhere else, trying to make sure this works and not having these mysteries of why things don't work. Yeah, and why don't you tell us about that, Todd?
Sure. Well, and also just to talk about plugging something back into the backside of a component. One thing I really like about these cables is that they have some memory. So you can almost pre-position how you want the cable to be, and you can plug it in, and it pretty much stays just like that. And they're very lightweight. Jack, in a second, I'd like to get into what the outside sheathing is made of, but it seems very durable to me. It's not coming off of the internal sheath or cabling at all. It's really super high quality. But what you see there on the screen is just the results of the testing that I've done. As Steve was alluding to, the cables are super thin. So on the left-hand side of your screen there, you can see an arrow pointing to the cable itself. And I was measuring 4.8 millimeters on average for the thickness of the cable. And then, Steve, as you pointed out, it's not that much thicker as you go to that 5 meter cable. 7.5 millimeters. And then when you get to the 15 meter, which is that hybrid fiber optic cable, it drops way back down again, down to 5.6 millimeters. And those measurements are really off the charts compared to some of the other cables that we've looked at. The static bend radius, which you see down there in the lower right-hand corner, I was squeezing them probably a bit tighter than you were, Steve, there on screen, but you can really get a tight bend radius on these. And you can see there 12 millimeters. That tops the charts for any cable that we've had on HDMI test bench so far. And that really goes into play what you see up in the right-hand corner, which is that what I'm calling the recommended distance between the backside of a component and a flat surface, which would be like a wall or back of a cabinet or something. So when you're jamming your component up, you're not maybe putting undue stress or unneeded stress onto the backside of your component. And again, these tested really, really well. And a lot of that has to do with the cable itself, and some has to do with the actual length of the head, which I measured the length of the head, but also the length to, and Jack, you'll have to correct me, but this protection point between the head and
strain relief,
strain relief. Those measurements were also, especially for your shorter length cables, very short compared to some of the cables that we've seen come through, sent to us for testing.
You really want to, in a way, you want to make sure you just spread out the stress relief. You have like the nylon fold that goes onto the stress relief that just goes onto the main casing that goes to the plug, and having that all connected, make sure that when something is pulling down on it, or you're just getting maybe overzealous with the installation, that you're going to distribute that force, and you're not just going to have loose solder wires with like a loose strain relief kind of all around it, that you can actually have some confidence you're not going to pull a wire, because they're very delicate little wires there. And I mean, it also underscores why we even have a 0.5 meter cable. We had probably like a 2-hour meeting where we were all ripping our hair out saying, well, why are we talking about 0.5 meters so much? Well, I'm like, it's actually quite important because there's a lot of issues with extreme. We've talked about it over Twitter, I think, in the past, Todd, about some issues with the extreme uber short cables, which I can, we'll book another hour, another day for. But the real message is that those guys want symmetry in their rack designs. They want to be able to make everything perfect and, tied up really cleanly. And if they don't have that nice strain relief and the confidence, it's just that one point of that one node in the system that breaks, that brings the whole thing down. I mean, I've seen so many times in the field of blaming a long reach cable because it feels like that's the one. And it's like an Apple TV with a 0.5 meter cable on it, that's a little thicker. And it actually does come down to, we made it thin for a reason. It wasn't just out of, hey, that's just the way we're going to do it. No, there was some science behind it. And we wanted to prove to people that we could eliminate all those sparkles and what I call the glitch gremlins out there, making sure they don't rear their ugly heads, and we can actually fix that issue. So we're really happy to hear that it tested so well up against the competition there.
Yeah. Can you very briefly just touch on what the issue is with cables that are shorter than, say, I think we were talking about 2 meters or shorter?
Well, I would actually say it's about 0.8 meters and under, and obviously we only have the one single 0.5 meter skew that would be affected. So essentially, if you can imagine a 0.5 meter cable with a standard typical, let's say 8 millimeter diameter, which usually means it's a 28 or a 30 gauge wiring inside. Essentially what happens is you create a high speed wire system that actually looks too good. And what I mean by that is that the sync or the display has an equalizer chip inside of it. So right at the port of the HDMI receptacle into a display, for example. And the first stage of the IC is called an equalizer. And that thing is designed to boost, add gain to a loss of cable. And it can get confused if it actually does look too good. So if it's a pristine signal and the wire is a little bit thicker, you can actually over equalize that only over that amount of cable. And that can cause some issues. So by actually making it purposefully thinner, that you actually make the loss greater. I know it's a little weird to think about, but 2.5 meter cables side by side, one being thick, one being thin, are quite different in the eyes of an equalizer. So by adding that little bit of attenuation, by making it thinner, you're actually making it cooperate with the equalizer itself. So that's why we actually do that. Cat's out of the bag. Now you'll see a lot of thin 0.5 meter cables out there.
That's great.
You really can't patent that stuff, but you can sure as heck make it work, right?
Since you're talking about the tech side of things, do you want to just touch on here? We have a slide that you so kindly sent to me earlier today, just to kind of discuss what happens when you plug a cable into a piece of equipment, turn it on.
Of course, my nerd brain decided to throw this together this morning, and it didn't format as well as I thought it would, but maybe if you look over that, anyways. So this is a snapshot of everything there is in the actual HDMI system, but specifically broken out on the right to that main block that we actually have some control over, which is the connectors and the plugs and the raw cable. Everything else is aesthetics. Everything else is, does it look good? I think looking good should be the same price as making something look bad. So we've decided to make it look good. But if we look at the sequence, the startup sequence with HDMI 2.1, this is where things break. When things are up and running, typically you're feeling pretty good. And yeah, there will be some down the line issues, possibly in sparkles due to environmental issues or noise or things like that. But let's just plug in an HDMI cable from scratch. So the first thing that happens is there's a pin called cable power. So on the upper left, you see 5 volts DC, and it's 300 milliamps of power, which is previously 50 milliamps of power. So HDMI decided to give us a lot more current capability so that we could have these practical reaches of 5+ meters get up towards the 16, 20, 25 meter reaches. And that's something that you could plug into a home theater and be happier with. But what you're going to do is take that 5 volt signal, go from left to right to a detection circuit on let's just say a projector. So it knows it's there, and it's going to send what's called a hot plug signal back. And all that is a 5 or a 3.3 volt signal that just says, hi, I'm connected. I know I'm connected to a cable. And it goes back and it hits a detect circuit on the other side. When those both ends are confirmed green, they're happy, they're connected, then it's going to do what's called an EDID read. So EDID is a fancy acronym in the wonderful world and alphabet soup of HDMI. EDID is essentially a text file that's located in the source and the display. And all it does is says what I can do and what I can't do. Whether it be I can do HDR, I can't do HDR, or if I can do 8K or I can't do 8K. And it will settle on the lowest common denominator, so you don't have a black screen, right? So it's a really ingenious thing. It's meant to get the most out of your system. So that read will actually happen over those two wires called HEAC, plus and minus, the arrows in the top right there. Now, that's a very critical pair that we'll get into in just a second. But the idea is that EDID read will establish the system for format, maximizing the format overall. Then it's saying, okay, I can actually spit out that data. So it's going to spit out the fixed rate link, which is the FRL data 3, 2, 1, and 0, which will have a 12 gigabit per second per channel on a differential pair. So that gives you your 12 times 4, your 48. That used to be TMDS data, where it was 3 data and a clock. So it would be 666 with 18 aggregate. But now they're going from 18 in the HDMI 2.0 realm up to 48 gigabit per second. So a ton of power there over those 4 pairs. But everything is happening concurrently when you get to the real nasty one that I'm sure everybody knows about, was HDCP. So it's gone through many incarnations, 1.x, now in 2.x. And this is essentially a very sophisticated, unique key exchange where every HDMI player, every HDMI display or repeater or amp, they all have unique keys at the point of insertion. So out of an amp, into a cable, onto the display, let's say. All of these things will actually run concurrently over the channel when data is being spewed from left to right. So when you get all that data running and you're running a Blu-ray movie and you're really happy, now everybody knows that every 2 or 3 seconds, there's this giant 64-bit word that's being encrypted and making sure that Hollywood content can actually be played. And I'm sure, Todd, you've seen the types of errors. You know, there's an HDCP error with an image on the screen, or pseudo-random noise, like this big cloudy image that flashes, all those types of things. So with long reach, that's uber critical, right? So we actually do edge sharpening on DDC lines. So DDC looks like it should look a nice square wave running from about 15 to 25, as high as 100 kilohertz, where this exchange happens. It used to be the biggest issue in the world when everyone wanted to go, 30 and 40 meters, because that would break it. Well, now, because we're going shorter in 15 meters because of 8K's capabilities, we can actually get that down to a science and get those edges nice and sharp again, reaching their proper threshold. So yeah, I went through a giant nerdery of slides there, but you showed it right there.
Is that what you're talking about? Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's an example on the left of a 20-meter DDC signal. So you have a clock, which is bursts of clock in the yellow, and the blue color there is the data. And that shark finning, if you look closely on the upper left of that image, there's a kind of a steady yellow line horizontally at the very beginning. That's where the reference voltage should be. But what is happening here is that it's degrading over a 20-meter cable. So even a 100 kilohertz signal can actually fail. And when that fails, your DDC will actually fail. And more importantly is that going back to that 5 volts are now called the cable power out of a source, that has what's called current limiting built in. It's designed so that I can't power, my fridge with it. I can't go and put something that's trying to grab too much current, which is a lot of the competitors in the past who said, let's just rip an amp out of that and see what will happen. What it does, it'll actually start dropping the voltage if you overuse that current, and that could actually cause the drop. So what we've done is made sure that the entire THX Interconnect line, copper and optical, always falls under the old legacy 50 milliamps provided, so that you can work with anything legacy down to a 480p image all the way up to 8K. And it will never pull more than 50 milliamps, even at 15 meters of optical cable.
Woo!
Sorry about that. I go on. I go on for a while, and I could go on for more. So you'll have to kind of cut me off or something.
That's some very interesting detail there. I think most people don't understand how complicated it is, but it's very easy to see how easy a failure point can be, exploited into a big time problem.
just leave it to us. That's my suggestion. Don't get into this world. Say just Jack and Steve. Those are the guys to talk to, and that's that.
Right. And that's kind of the whole point, isn't it? Don't really worry about it. We don't want consumers and installers to have to worry about which one, why, about whether the cable's too short or too thick or whatever. This is just a very solid family of cables, just bringing simplicity to the marketplace that wasn't really there before. Just pick the cable size you need, just, put them all in and it all will work. You don't have to worry about that, short or long. We solved all the problems for you.
And it was by design, Todd, that we sent you all those links. We noticed we didn't just send you 2 meters.
Yes.
Is that shouldn't you just be able to pick one of a length that does it all? Like, I don't agree with 8 versions of one length. I was a little mum about it for a long time, but now I'm starting to actually scream from the mountaintops that this does this, but not this for this reason is out of my vocabulary. It's one length that you pull to use it. And I would never put out a 1 meter optical cable. And I would never put out 3 versions of one cable length. So I think that's where there's this commonality between Steve and I, that simplicity, we'll take all the heavy lifting and just enjoy, hook up your setup and get everything out of it the best you can get. And we'll talk cable training next time. Cable training is the big one we'll talk about.
Okay. Steve, would you like to talk briefly? I know we're getting close to the end of our show here, but you guys have given us some really interesting packaging. And I know there was a little eco twist to things. This larger, there you go. You've got the box. What was the thought process going on there?
Right. Well, there's, we had a lot of discussions on packaging, right? What do we want to do? How, what makes a really interesting package, informative packaging? Yeah, we had other interests that were really, really important. We wanted to make them as eco-friendly as possible. So, and we think about installers, when you have a whole stack of cables, do you have a bunch of boxes then that you now to dispose? Are they plastic box or whatever? So we want to make very recyclable packaging that they can efficiently, dispose of when they're done. However, there's one package that they may not want to dispose of. You actually just showed that right there. We thought that we might want to put out a limited edition tin for the long reach cables so that when you buy those, you have something very, very cool. It's a limited run of 500 right now for these ones that Jack is showing you right there. If you see the number. What number is that, Jack?
That's number 12, Steve.
Number 12.
I've got 8 right here.
Look at that. Top 10.
Top 10.
It's interesting, Todd. We've actually had people contact Pixelgen saying, I don't even need an HDMI cable. What's your shortest length? I'm like, right away, sir. I'm not joking. It's happened several occasions. And I've actually been really happy with, it's not just been the end user B2C. It's been a lot of like dealers and integrators and obviously the distribution chains that are just wanting to support that now. And it's because we've solved so many problems. The environmental impact, like you mentioned, we didn't want to just do it with one. Reuse and environmentally friendly is absolutely everything. We wanted to solve the thinness, the flexibility. We solved that. Compatibility is obviously at the top of the list. Aesthetics, amazing brand. Like we wanted to solve every single issue that's ever arose with HDMI. And I feel like we've done that. I feel like THX and Pixelgen have worked our butts off to make that happen. And here we are. I'm very happy with it. And sorry we couldn't get you number 1 because I think in the future you'll see who that's going to, and and maybe we'll all understand. Oh, I see who that was going to.
What is the outer sheath made of? It's some kind of nylon.
It's just nylon, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've had a couple brands come through where if you begin to bend it, the nylon separates from the inner cable, basically. This is not happening on this cable. I mean, you can really twist this thing around, just snaps right back into shape.
So there is a way to actually wind that properly where it actually kind of grips itself. It's pretty sophisticated. But I've actually seen it in action with, the thousands of threads kind of flying in different directions, and it just kind of goes up the cable. And there is a way that they've made now that we kind of work together on an idea of actually kind of counter twisting it to make it grip to each other. So this is the kind of thing I do on a daily basis. So I'm this father of 5 by night and then this by day. And so I wanted to really kind of solve every type of issue with this. And with Steve and I, we just had this incredible working relationship where we were able to just, not be stopped by all this red tape, just 2 parties that really wanted to do it all. and we've accomplished it. It's been a great team effort.
Where are these being sold? Are they being sold brick and mortar or mainly just online?
Well, right now we're doing point to point through the Pixelgen site, so we're fulfilling everything. So you can go right in there. You could order 1, you could order 10 or 15 or 20. It's up to you. But we do have recommended dealers that we have all across North America. And then if you click on a separate tab on our website, you'll see a distribution list as well, which is being updated, I would say, weekly now. We've actually hit all the major geographical markets and the territories that we're in. They're coming to us now. You know, for years we were kind of pushing down saying, hey, look at these cables. And now it's the other way around because the word is spreading. We've solved a lot of issues. We've hit the right price point, I feel. And yeah, so everything is available today. And you know, it's been real exciting. So we're actually shipping right out of Burlington here in Canada.
Wow. That's fantastic. And one other thing to note here on your fiber optic cables, they are directional.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
Some people may not know that, but definitely don't pull one through a conduit before you look at the plug heads. But I think on this image
it's labeled.
Here, you can see, that it's labeled.
It is labeled, and we do make it the different color. We inverse that gold color that we went with, and we inverse that so that we could make it okay. Well, these are obviously different than that big, bold THX font that says display on it. We felt was a pretty, I don't want to go back to that meeting, Steve, but we came back to that as being what was absolutely needed. But to be honest, if you reverse it by accident, obviously if it's in a conduit, that would be a pain as well. But if you did reverse it by accident, nothing would happen. It would just sit there dormant, waiting, screaming for it to be reversed. So maybe that'll have to be the next one. Is the directional? Stay tuned.
Directional fiber optics
or bidirectional fiber optic.
Yeah. Bidirectional, right? Bidirectional.
And also, the cover, the cap we put on it was rounded to make it a little easier going through conduit as well. So just add a little extra help to the installer so it doesn't get caught on corners and clamps and that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And at least I'm losing track of where all my slides are here. But the width of the head is it's not 21 millimeters. I know that. I think it's a little smaller than that.
Yeah, it is.
So that's a measurement that I did not change, but it is 10 millimeters thick, right?
That's right. And for the caps, I'll finish with what Steve was mentioning. You step on them, they don't hurt. I had a local friend who was evaluating them online, and they said that was their number one thing. Everything else, okay, Jack, that's good. But I stepped on one and it didn't hurt.
Yeah, they're rubber. They're flexible.
Yes.
So
I know. Yeah.
Todd, when you go to testing these, you've got to tie them to the back of your vehicle and pull them through town.
There you go.
He tows his truck with it. Actually, that's what he does. He tows the truck.
Yeah, that's right.
I have thought about testing their overall strength, but I haven't quite figured out how to pull that off. But
zip lines. That's what we use.
Exactly. Can you hang off a skyscraper?
We can talk about it offline, I think, because I do have a little rig that I do for that here to kind of quantify that exactly what you're saying. How much can you actually do here before just one craps out or two is on the brink of crapping out, right? So yeah, there is a controlled test that I've come up with. It's actually, you could produce it yourself.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, let's definitely talk about that. Well, Sonnie, do you have any more questions?
I got to go order cables.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we dropped into chat Pixelgen's website where you can go and see. I know we've had quite a few people coming in and out watching us this afternoon. No questions. But for those of you who are watching this, because this will be on YouTube just as soon as we power down here, you can click on that web address up there. And that will take you right over to Pixelgen, and that's where you can order them. And you said they're shipping out now, correct?
That's right. And I'll jump in the comments as well. I'll have a look, and I'll spend my evening going through that. This is my life. This is the life I chose.
Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us for a while this afternoon and talking about this really interesting new product. And I think, it shouldn't fall on deaf ears that what you have done has made it easy. So it's worth the little extra cost over what would be a very cheap cable that you can find on eBay to spend the money and get something that is going to work. Because when these don't work, as Sonnie was saying earlier, they don't work. They just don't work.
That's right.
And you
Been
don't
there
know
and done
why.
that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Awesome.
When you pull one through a 2-inch PVC conduit through your roof ceiling or in your attic or whatever, and up the wall, and then you find it don't work, then you learn to test them before you pull them. But
That's right.
yeah, but it's aggravating, that's for sure.
Leave it to us, right?
Good to see a good quality cable come about, and
Very
know
good.
that the testing procedure is there to certify them now. So
Very good.
And we got my friend Matt down here in Maryland chiming in, just saying he enjoyed the chat. So thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks so much. And everyone out there, stop by the forum at AV Nirvana. Sonny, any closing words?
no, hey, enjoy your black tie affair.
Oh, gosh. I know. I just got a text saying the car's coming. We got to go.
Talking about cables.
That's right. Tonight, yeah. Who wants to know about THX?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, gentlemen. We will look forward to catching up with you guys when the next product drops.
Great. Sounds great.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks,
Okay.
Sonny.
Thanks, guys.
Well, have
All
a good day. Good to meet you guys.
Cheers.
Take
Have
care.
a good evening.